Hello, good afternoon, good morning. Shane McCusker here, Intelligent Software. Welcome to another webinar. Today we're talking about mobile recruiting, how mobile phones are changing the world. This is a fascinating subject. I was pulling down some stats earlier on with regard to mobile devices. Here's a few numbers for you just to conjure up the background. There are 5.9 billion mobile devices in the world, and that accounts for 87% of the population. Now, these are stats I pulled from the end of 2011, so it's probably going up from that. Of that, there are 1.2 billion mobile web users, and a lot of those mobile web users, people that access the internet on the mobile device, don't access the internet through any other channels. So the mobile is their primary device of use for accessing the internet and all the apps that we're going to be talking about today. And again, 2011 stats, 85% of mobile devices that are being sold, telephones, are web enabled. So whether people are using it or not at this moment in time, they have the facility to use it in the future, and it's going to be rare that mobile devices are not web enabled or at least telephone devices are not web enabled. Mobile is permeating everywhere. So that just shows you some of the scale that mobile is taking off. We were talking earlier on about the impact that mobile is having in different countries. Different technologies are working at different places at different rates. SMS, which we might mention on passing, really took off in Europe first. Didn't really take off in the US because of their pricing policy for recruitment. Whereas, we know in countries, Kenya is the best example of really pushing the boundaries of how mobile is permeating mobile commerce. And now I think the majority of people in Kenya get their salaries paid directly to their mobile phone account so that they can go shopping with their mobile phone and pay bills directly using their mobile phone. China and India are the two biggest growth markets for mobile usage uptake. It'll be really interesting to see what's happening there. And it's in places like that where landline telephony isn't as all-pervasive as it is in the US or in Europe. And so mobile is becoming their primary use for communication. Okay, that's the kickoff. Let me just start off again before I introduce Hung. Just mention a little bit about myself. My name is Shane McCusker. I run Intelligent Software. We develop software systems for the recruitment industry, applicant tracking systems, basically any sort of technology to help recruitment agencies make more placements with less effort and work in a smarter way. I'm also fairly heavily involved in social. I run the South African Recruiters Group on LinkedIn. I write a blog which is really the repository for video content from our webinar series. I get involved with Bill Borman in organising True SA last year, and have been heavily involved in some of his True London events since the kickoff a number of years ago. My Twitter handle is @intelligence, spelled with a 1, and my website's intel-sw.com. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Hung Lee. Hung is a consultant, so I'm going to let you talk about yourself if you'd like to. A blogger and technology. You tweet under the name of Wise Man Say. What else can I say about you, Hung?
What else can you say? Lots of good things, Shane. Lots of good things.
An expert recruiter, an expert in social recruiting.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, basically, I've been exploring how to use social media and social media tools to recruit for the last 3 or 4 years now. So essentially what I do is I teach other companies how to do that, be they agencies or be they employers themselves that are looking to hire. So and what I wanted to do today is obviously talk about some of the mobile apps that I've been using for the last 12, 24 months or so. As you mentioned, Shane, some fantastic stats earlier about mobile usage. I think, isn't it 2013, the year where worldwide sort of mobile will overtake any other device in terms of interacting with the web. So we're really talking about the post-PC, post-desktop era, really. What interests me about mobile recruiting is particularly on the smartphone. And I want to talk about today how recruiters can use some of the mobile apps that you can freely download to source for candidates. So
I'm going to make you the presenter of the webinar, right, Hung, and then you can share your screen, and that should be over with you now.
Give me a sec.
If our technology kicks in.
There we go. So rather ironically, we're actually we're actually talking about mobile whilst demoing it on the desktop. So a bit of an irony there, but there's nothing we can do about that, as most of these apps that I'm going to introduce to you guys are actually iPhone apps that you can download to your iPhone or iPad. But just a bit of context to this. When most people think about mobile in recruitment, they typically think, okay, there's a company out there that's produced an app, and they're basically telling people how great they are. And it's really an employer branding tool as opposed to something that a recruiter can use. The other sort of main option that we see are typically job boards, like Monster job sites, CV Library, and the like. They've got mobile apps which companies can use for job distribution and really directed towards job seekers who can use the apps to essentially review opportunities and I guess one day apply through mobile. But what was interesting for me and what may be more interesting for the guys watching this is how can you use mobile apps to actually source candidates? And that's been an area of interest to me ever since I was introduced to geolocation and the idea that obviously the key feature of smartphones is that they produce location data, and can this be used to by creative recruiters to actually locate candidates? So I basically put together 5 apps which I think are worth using. All of them are for free, and the first one I want to talk about is Foursquare. I think most people will have heard of Foursquare if you're not already using it. It's the world's leading check-in service. Very quickly, in terms of what it's all about, you simply turn up to a certain location and you are incentivized to register your location by checking into that place, typically a retail outlet or a leisure retail outlet, a coffee bar or a bar, and you will tell whoever's following you where you're at. So initially, this app was used to kind of promote retail outlets, where often by checking in you can unlock various discounts and so forth. But of course, location data itself gives you a lot of information a recruiter can use. And one of the things that we've noticed over the last couple of years is that people like checking into their place of work. So at a very base level, simply by being a member of Foursquare and being connected at a certain level to people on there, by tracking their check-ins, you can work out with the frequency of check-ins that they perform, whether that individual works for that company or not. So typically this is effective when the employee in question is particularly proud of the business that they work in, and it's great for targeting certain what I call source sites, companies that your client would be keen to recruit from, and if you know where those guys are, then typically you monitor who's checking into that HQ or checking into that office. There's a good chance that that guy's actually an employee of that business. So very early on, I think that's probably the first application of using Foursquare to really hunt out candidates from named employers, if you like. But there's other features in Foursquare which are also pretty useful. Every time you check in, you of course can write something on that check-in, which of course can be converted very quickly into an advert. You can also leave tips into a particular geographical location, which, if we think just one step further, that could very easily be a link or an advert, a very brief advert for a particular role you might be recruiting for. And you can also leave photos as well, which of course need not be photos of a particular location, even though that was clearly the intention. But it could be a photograph of anything you want. It could be a job spec, it could be a QR code, it could be whatever it is that might signpost an opportunity that you're looking to recruit for. So one of the techniques that really pioneered by a couple of guys in the States, which I think, they would be effective in a very targeted manner, but it's a concept called guerrilla advertising, which is quite simply when you identify a location of a company. You simply have a look around and see what retail outlets are around there that those employees of that company might want to check into. And of course, all you have to do is check in yourself and leave your tip and leave your photo with the message that you're recruiting for this type of individual. You're effectively leaving a permanent advert directly within sort of you're leaving a permanent advert where your target audience is likely to see it. Again, free to use, pretty clever, particularly if your client is looking to recruit specifically from a competitor business, and it's I think a useful technique when you're in that circumstance. So keeping to bear in mind with Foursquare is that with a lot of these apps, to be honest, is that they're in a constant state of development. So check out the features, keep logging into it. Most people use it for fun. I'd recommend you do that yourself, but at the same time, keep in mind what data is actually being published by other people, and why that might be useful for you as a recruiter, and how you can then contribute content yourself, which could also help you in your task of the day. Moving on to a next app I want to talk about is an application called Sonar. I'd love to be able to show you a bit more about this. Maybe I can if I sign in with Foursquare here. But basically, Sonar is trying to do something. I'm going to proceed anyway. Sonar is going to do something which is slightly different from some of the other apps there, in the sense that it's kind of less concerned about sort of the proximity of it, but rather more concerned with how you know the people that are already there. So it's what's called a social discovery application. This was specifically designed for professional networking, as a matter of fact. It was to basically solve the problem of the conferencing scene, when you turn up to a conference, people in that conference are going to be useful to you, either from a biz dev point of view or from a candidate perspective, but you don't know who they are, and you don't know how you're connected to them. What Sonar does is that it will pick up the check-ins that people have made in various different check-in services, and then drag in connected social profiles that they've used. So what that would look like is basically you might check in with Foursquare, but you might have also linked in your Facebook or LinkedIn account to that. What Sonar will do is aggregate all of those profiles into a single place, so that it'll tell you how you're connected to that person. So the typical use case of Sonar would simply be to turn up to an event that a lot of people that you want to speak to might be, fire up the app and see who's actually checked in, and from that point you'll be able to see whether you're connected to them via LinkedIn, Twitter, or you're not connected at all, or wherever the case may be. So it's a hugely useful app. It's designed specifically to solve that problem of how you're connected and then how you can actually contact. And you should check them out on the website. I think they've got a very cool video, which I could actually play for you here. But I won't do that. But basically check out sonar.me. And you'll be able to see the simplicity of the app. But I definitely recommend it. It's one of those things that really does help if you're at a conference or an event and you're there to network. It's a great icebreaker once you're able to establish a connection due to the social profiles that everyone has these days. Moving on to the next app, which I think is again pretty hot to trot. A lot of people are talking about Banjo. Banjo is sort of trying to solve the problem of what if you're using a different check-in service, or what if you're not actually checking in at all, but you have a geotagged sort of facility that's enabled on your smartphone. So this was invented by the guy who was using Foursquare. I think he was at an airport somewhere. He checked into the airport, and it turned out there's a friend of his was using a different check-in service at the time, only 30 minutes apart. But because they were using different services, they didn't pick each other up, and they weren't able to connect. So he thought about that, and he thought, okay, why don't we get and create an app which aggregates all the check-in services and geotagging services that are out there and puts them into a single profile. So their website actually gives you a pretty good demo of this. This is basically what the app looks like. And you can see sort of with the people that are there, how does this guy know who they are? And the truth is, and how they're connected. You see the little B there basically means this person has downloaded a Banjo, where you see the Twitter sign here. Basically, that person isn't using any check-in service at all, but has Twitter, the geotag function on Twitter enabled. So what Banjo, the cool thing about Banjo really is that it works even if no one else is actually using it, but it allows you to pick up anybody who's actually publishing geotagged data in your particular proximity. And of course, it does have a search function which allows you to search for what is being said, and you can set distance, and I think you can actually set wherever it is in the world. It's not actually tied down to your personal location, so you can go to anywhere in the world really, and try and source people from that point. Next up I want to talk about is something called LocalMind, which is a slightly different type of take. LocalMind is actually a Q&A site, and the function of this is they're trying to solve the problem of what is going on at a certain location right now. You can't really rely on the web, of course, these days. You know, that's just published information. Can you rely on Twitter necessarily? Well, you have to search for that. What if I really wanted to know something about a particular location? Can I speak to a local or a local mind and get that information out there? So, you know, it's a bit of a fun type of application. It's designed ultimately as a recommendations engine, really. You know, where's a good place to eat, where's a good place to go out, and so forth. But of course, it is also useful in many respects for recruiting. It's a Q&A site, so you know you've got an application basically which allows you unlimited questions to people that are in a certain place in a certain geographical area, I guess. So pretty easy to understand what the application might be for that. I think it's one of the few apps that are out there where you might actually get away with asking people directly for referral information or whatever it might be that could be relevant to you. Key thing with this is that once you have a question answered, that also unlocks a one-to-one chat functionality, which of course allows you to then have a deeper conversation about what's going on. So again, similar to Banjo, it allows you to go anywhere in the world. I'm recruiting for a position in San Francisco right now. How the hell do I do that? Well, of course, I'm asking people that are local to San Francisco, where are the best places, both on and offline, that I need to go in terms of finding these individuals. So it's just another way in which you could surface out intelligence about a local area and where you might be able to identify individuals that could be valuable to you. An additional feature of LocalMind actually is that they've got a ranking system which allows you to basically establish something of a leaderboard in terms of whether you're an expert or not in a particular area. Of course, you know, we've talked so far about LocalMind as a tool in which you can ask questions, but it's always a powerful position to be if you're considered to be an expert and a guy who's able to answer questions. So, you know, there's all kinds of potential there in terms of how you want to promote yourself as an individual, as an expert in an area, or an expert even in a particular technology or whatever it is that you recruit for. The last app I want to introduce to you guys is kind of a very new app, and it represents, I think, a very new technology, something called Ambient Location. What Ambient Location is, in fact, if you go back to Foursquare, one of the mechanics behind check-in services is that you have to manually check in. And of course, I think that's one of the big reasons why it probably hasn't gone mainstream, because it requires someone to be on the phone and being diligent and actually, and ensuring that they check in. What ambient location apps like Glancee do is that they, by signing up to it, you basically frictionlessly share that check-in no matter where you go. So by using Glancee, essentially you're always updating your location to whoever else is actually on the app. So I'm just showing you a Facebook check-in right now, and you can see that on the app this will look different, but what this will do is via a combination of proximity and interests, it will match me with people that you can see here that I may want to have conversations with. These people are based on the interests, as you can see. Let me see if this works. Yeah, sure. So I can add interests here. These are the people, these are Facebook interests, so listen to these types of things. I'm interested in wherever it might be. But if you're clever with manipulating what your interests are, then of course it will match you with people that might share that interest. Sorry, let me get rid of that. So basically, you've got an application where let's say you're recruiting for an engineer of some description, a Java developer. Ted, please go away. You can let me just get rid of the chat function here. Go offline. There we go. So basically, you're looking for a Java engineer. Obviously, it makes sense for you to add Java as an interest. Glancee will pick that up, and it will match you with Java people who are also interested in Java that happen to be walking around in a geographical place that's sort of in close proximity to yourself. It's got an open follow system. What that means is you can follow whoever the hell you like, and from there you can actually chat to them directly without them saying yay or nay. So immediately you can see there's a huge recruitment opportunity there for Glancee. Glancee itself, I think, is pretty much designed to be a dating application, and I think there's a lot of work to be done with regards to security with a lot of these applications, and I think you'll find that because of the open follow and the open chat system, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to degrade into kind of chat roulette on the move, if you like, where only people that are hammering sales or doing other things and making the platform unpleasant for others are going to be on it. But like I said, it's a really new application. It only came out really in a big way in South by Southwest last week. But you can see the recruitment potential for apps like Glancee and others. Certainly, there are other applications out there that are more geared towards professional networking and even geared towards recruiting. If you go to an application called Intro, which we're not going to spend too much time on today given the time frame, but Intro itself looks pretty much like a recruitment version of Glancee, where essentially you can set your interest in terms of who you're actually looking to meet, and it will match you up with people that have an interest in either being that person or they set their interests that align with what you declare yourself as. So again, these ambient location apps have got huge potential, I think, for recruiting, and it's something that's worth keeping an eye on. So to finish, Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Shane.
No, I was jumping in there because I felt you were coming to a conclusion. I think it's just really fascinating, the nature of what's going on there. But to what extent is it that these technologies, how useful are they right now? I mean, are you using these to recruit, or is it just still at an experimental phase, or where are you at right now?
Yeah, yes, I am. I mean, I think with Banjo and Sonar, I think every recruiter needs to use that immediately. If you're watching this webinar and you've got an iPhone, then download it. I guarantee you it's going to be of value to you. Especially if you're recruiting, if you're a technology vertical recruiter, or you're a vertical recruiter of any description, that you only recruit a certain type of skill set. Very quickly, if you go to meetups or you go to events, where people of that particular skills group get together, then apps like Sonar and Banjo, at the very least, are going to give you information that you didn't have before. It may be that in terms of how you recruit, you're going to have to do it off the app, and maybe just note down names or save them or wherever it might be, but it will at least give you information that you didn't have before. With tools like Foursquare, LocalMind, I think they are a little bit more experimental. You have to be a bit more creative. Would I advise anybody to spend hours and hours on that ahead of searching LinkedIn or using Boolean search or being on the phone and speaking to candidates directly? No, I wouldn't. But at the same time, on specific circumstances, I certainly think they've got an application. The ambient location tools that I mentioned, I think certainly are effective. Particularly if you're recruiting for a certain type of person. At the moment, it's very early adopter, so the guys that I'm looking at, if you just check out the matches here, see if they can actually be fired up. All of these guys you can see are pretty much early adopters, but you know what? Some pretty cool companies and some pretty good candidates there. This will probably change as it becomes more mass market. But if you're recruiting for tech startups and what have you, you know what? I'm going to use this tool. So yeah, I think it's all about how you use it. A lot of it, which I didn't mention at the start of the conversation here, was that what you bring into these apps is important as what you bring out. So all of these things are dependent on the amount of social data you actually bring into the application. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, or you haven't got any Facebook friends, and you don't tweet, I don't think any of these apps will be any use to you, because you'll simply sign up to it and you won't ever see anything. But if you have developed your network online with those platforms and you link them to these mobile applications, then suddenly information will be revealed to you. And a recruiter is nothing but a broker of information, right? He's a guy that knows stuff that other people don't. So if you know how to use information in the right way, there's no doubt that these applications can be useful for your job.
It was I mentioned this earlier on, the example that Bill Fisher had with Social CV a number of months ago, that he had Social CV was set up that he was looking at tweets that were coming from a geographical position. He knew there was a big conference going on. It was a conference in America about SAP, and up on his computer screen in real time was coming up the CVs of everybody who was tweeting out from that location. What do you know? They're all techie people interested in SAP. So it was a wonderfully powerful way of being able to, the geo-positioning stuff in particular is just really powerful in terms of being able to create a pool of people that you know have a particular interest or at a particular event. I made a forecast. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, just to touch on that example you used there, Shane, the interesting thing is that a lot of these, pretty cutting-edge type applications are actually all about taking it back offline and into the real world. It's about finding if there's a group of people, sort of events-based recruitment, I call it, if they're getting together for a meetup or some kind of conference, and you want to know the delegates list, or you want to know who's actually talking about that particular event, then right there you've got your roster of candidates. As you mentioned with the social CV example, people tweeting about SAP are generally going to be SAP guys. The apps like Sonar and Banjo will give you their LinkedIn profiles. They'll give you what they like to talk about and how you're connected to them, and all this other type of rich information, which can really help you make that connection.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just fantastic what can be done now. I think time is now against us. Hung, thank you very much for your time and contribution today. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic to be able to get other people involved in my webinar series, and it's really good to talk about stuff that I'm not really expert in, but is absolutely going to become the thing to watch going forward. And I'm not talking years away. I'm talking about the mobile stuff is there now and is going to be growing everywhere in the world over the next number of months. So it's good to be ahead of the game and be an early adopter, particularly if some of these things like Glancee in particular are just out a week. It's really nice to have our finger on the pulse. So thank you very much for that. If anybody wants to get in touch with Hung, it's if you get your website up there, Hung, maybe you can. We're still looking at your screen. It's just wisemansay.co.uk. There you
That's
are.
right, wisemansay.co.uk. Contact me on. You can find me anywhere, to be honest. So.
And you wrote a blog mentioning all these apps, so all the information's on your blog page there. I'll be putting the recording of this up on our website, intel-sw.com/blog, and we'll see if we can continue the conversation. I'm back again 2 weeks' time, another webinar. I'm not too sure what I'm going to be talking about then, but it'll be something interesting in the recruitment technology space, I'm sure. Looking forward for seeing everybody there. Thanks very much, Hung, and that's the end of today's webinars.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.
Talk soon. Bye.